Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're standing in a narrow entryway where a forgotten grocery list curls like a sleeping caterpillar, where the afternoon sun turns dust into glittering traffic, and where a house holds its breath the way a stage does right before the curtain lifts. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And in the comments, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. I like seeing our little constellation of night owls. Now, turn off the lights, maybe let a fan hum in the background, and let's begin tonight's journey together.
I was halfway to the supermarket when I patted my pocket and felt nothing but optimism. No wallet. The cart I'd borrowed from the vestibule squeaked its little betrayal, and I wheeled it back, muttering the inventory of a woman who's learned efficiency the hard way: keys, phone, canvas bags, price brain. Then I turned the car around, the dashboard clock blinking 2:47 like a fussy metronome, and drove home through a neighborhood that thinks cul-de-sacs are personality. I keep a spare key under the third step, the one that creaks like a polite apology, so I could slip in quickly, avoid the sticky front door, and rescue my wallet from the bowl by the lamp. Choreography, not drama. Except the kitchen window was open, and voices, low and urgent, stitched themselves through the screen. The neurologist said, if we can document the confusion, we can request a full eval. My daughter's voice, Mara Swift, crisp, like a calendar with opinions. She left the stove on last week. She turned it off. Another voice said, Colton, my son-in-law, the way some men get their consonants from their watch. But I got the photo of the pot smoking. Evidence is evidence. I froze where the doormat half says, well, and half says, come, because the sea gave up last winter. The house tilted. The step under my foot remembered its job and did not squeak. Academic phrase of the day: undue influence, the public argument that power wrapped in care can be used to steer someone else's decisions until they look like their own. I learned the term later. At 2:51 p.m., it arrived without a name, just a temperature change in my chest. I'm telling you, Mara said, if we don't get ahead of this, something will happen. She hides bills in cookbooks. Colton, I found a visa in The Joy of Pickling. Joke One tried to raise its hand, believe me. Pickling has rescued worse things than a bill, but humor went quiet when I heard paper shuffle. Look, he continued, we get the evaluation. If the score is where Dr. S thinks, we can petition for guardianship. It's not like we're stealing, it's preserving her assets. The house goes in trust. We manage. No more mistakes. The word guardianship sat there, heavy and oiled, like a machine I hadn't ordered. Elder wisdom reflection. When a conversation you're not in starts rearranging your life, don't rush the room. Finish breathing first. Name what you know quietly and move your knowledge to higher ground. I edged back, down the porch step, knees remembering teenage stealth, and came around to the side door I never use because the hinge does that neighbor alerting shriek. I didn't want to alert anyone. I wanted my wallet and the kind of clarity that comes in groceries and receipts. Inside, the hallway was undisturbed. Family photos did their polite job of pretending they hadn't heard anything. The bowl by the lamp held the exact wallet I'd misplaced, smirking in leather. I slid it into my bag and, because habit can save you when bravery hasn't arrived yet, I took one slow, silent phone photo of the kitchen through the doorway, Mara at my table with a notepad, Colton holding his phone at an angle that meant pictures of papers, not puppies. I backed out like a cat from a bath and got in my car and drove 3 blocks away to the church parking lot, where nobody notices if you recalibrate your whole life. I turned off the engine, left the air on low, put my forehead on the steering wheel, and did the oldest inventory I know. Can I breathe? Yes. Can I think? Maybe. Do I have time? Some. Do they? Also some. Quick, quirky sidebar, the I forgot my wallet phenomenon strikes the average person 15 to 20 times over a lifetime. It clusters around transitions, new jobs, moves, grief when cognitive load steals pockets. I'm not saying I'm average. But I did once bring a saucepan to book club because both were on the counter. I called June, my sister, whose intuition arrives earlier than her phone manners, and when she answered with, "You okay?" I almost laughed. "Define okay," I said. Then told her about the open window, the voices, the words that walked into my kitchen without wiping their feet. She was very still. "You're going to document," she said, "and you're going to make copies of everything they want copies of, and you're going to stop assuming anyone understands the difference between help and control." "That seems harsh," I said, out of a reflex older than Mara. "That seems self-defense," she replied. And her voice did the thing nurses' voices do when the hallway gets loud. I drove to the supermarket because pasta doesn't buy itself and I needed cover, under fluorescent charity. I looked like any woman in produce comparing basil that promised different futures. I put lemons in the cart because lemons fix more than recipes. Grabbed pasta. A jar of artichokes that tasted like optimism. Milk because you never want to run out when life tries a plot twist. And yes, pickling spice because if they were going to cite my cookbook as evidence, I could at least make something worthy of the accusation. Back home, I came in through the front like a person who trusted her own doorknob. The kitchen window was now shut. Mara was at the sink doing the performance wash, you know the one. Lots of water on the apron. Face like penitence. Colton was in the doorway, pretending the doorframe had asked for a conversation. "Forgot my wallet," I said in my bright, not at all shaken voice. Price brain can only do so much. "You should have called," Mara said too quickly. Drying a plate that had been dry when it was born, "We would have met you," Colton supplied, both helpful and rehearsed. "I managed," I said. "You two here for..." I let the sentence fetch its own ball. "Just checking in," Mara answered. "We should go over bills, just to simplify. That word, the darling of people who like other people's drawers organized." Joke 2 stepped in wearing polite shoes. "If you simplify my dessert shelf, you'll meet a lawyer," I said lightly. "Custody belongs to the chocolate." They laughed. And Mara tried for the tender lane. "Mom, you've been forgetting things. It's okay. We could set up a routine." She didn't say eval. She didn't say neurologist. She didn't have to. The words were still in the window screen. "I have routines," I said. "They have names? Coffee. Stamps. Monday soup. Thursday bench. Saturday plants. I'm very modern." Then I did the thing that bought me 24 hours. I asked them to dinner on Sunday. 5:30. I'll make something that requires knives and complex timing. We can talk. Bring your questions. Bring your simplifications. Colton brightened, like a man who expected someone to sign something after dessert. "We'll bring salad," he said. "We have that new balsamic that..." "Doesn't need permission," I finished. "Great. Bring the smug vinegar." They left with a calendar smile and an exchange of glances that believed itself private. I stood in the kitchen and listened to the refrigerator's simple sermon about keeping what must be kept cold. Academic phrase of the day. Now I can say it with a name. Medicalization. The public argument that ordinary life, conflict, or aging gets translated into diagnosis so power can wear a stethoscope. I wrote it on an index card and put it on the fridge next to my grocery list where I could see it while I chopped onions and didn't cry. That evening, I walked to the park bench I funded last year. The one under the elm that behaves like shade remembers its job. A teenager was stretched across it, reading a paperback with the commitment of a monk. The plaque, for whoever needs 10 minutes of public goodness, looked at me gently, and I took my 10. I thought about doors and windows and how sound travels cheaper than paper. I thought about my handwriting, which refuses to be cowed into elderliness. I thought about the bowl by the lamp and the way my wallet tends to hide when the plot would prefer a twist. When I got home, I made a list for tomorrow in my tiny lawyer script, 1 photos of all documents, 2 bank appointment for read-only online access and alerts to my sister, 3, call Dr. Larkin my actual doctor, not their letterhead for a cognition baseline on my terms, not in ambush. 4, lawyer call Mr. Adler, ask about any existing POAs, wills, beneficiaries, locks. 5, freeze credit. 6, breathe. Elder wisdom. Second serving crisis wants you flustered. Give it organization instead. If someone plans to set your life on fire, wet the curtains. Before bed. I reheated the simplest pasta in the world, olive oil, garlic, the artichokes with optimism, and ate it at the table where my daughter had positioned her pen to write my future. I moved the pen to the drawer where pens go when they need a nap and set my own index cards down, medicalization. Undue influence. Sunday dinner knives and timing. I am not a knife fighter. I am a woman with recipes. That will do. Joke 3. Quiet but present. I put the pickling spice on the counter and told it, if you're going to be my evidence, at least be delicious. Then I set my phone on Do Not Disturb, wrote 3 words on a sticky note, not today, wolves, and tucked it under the salt. The house exhaled. The step that creaks decided to keep a secret, and I slept. Not because the story was safe yet, but because day 1 is for listening. Day 2 would be for verbs. Morning asked for verbs, and I obliged. I set the kettle to its quiet calisthenics and opened a fresh spiral notebook, the good kind, with margins that respect secrets. On the first page I wrote, in small courthouse letters, today is for paper. Then I photographed every drawer that ever held my future birth certificate, deed, pension letter, social security card, the will Mr. Adler drafted 5 summers ago when tomatoes were behaving and Mara still called me for recipes without adding policy notes. Academic phrase of the day, chain of custody. The public argument that evidence matters more when you can prove who touched it, when, and in what order. I numbered each photo 001, 002, 003, whispered the numbers like rosary beads, and backed the files up to a thumb drive I labeled in ink not even my younger self would dare smudge. Blue. Because originals deserve to look like themselves. I made coffee in a cup that doesn't audition and called my bank. 2 things. I told the woman whose voice suggested she wears sensible shoes and carries a pen people return. Add my sister, June, as read-only trusted contact with alerts on withdrawals over 200. And freeze my debit if 3 attempts fail in 30 minutes. She typed the sound of a lock clicking. We also have a watchword feature, she offered. A word you say before we discuss sensitive matters. I chose a word that would make Mara roll her eyes if she heard it sauerkraut. Joke 1 bowed to the jar of pickling spice on the counter. Next credit bureaus. Freeze, freeze, freeze. Experian wanted to be complimented first. Equifax asked for a code like it wanted to date me. TransUnion just wanted order. I printed the confirmations and leaned them against the salt like tiny shields. Mr. Adler called back at 9:40 with the unflappable tone of a man who has translated chaos into bullet points since Reagan. Everything you signed with me is intact, he said. No springing powers of attorney. Your medical directive names June and only June. Review your beneficiary designations. With the custodian, you'd be amazed how many people forget those outrun their wills. I was not amazed. I was the demographic that forgets. We scheduled a check-in for Friday, and he ended with the sentence, lawyers keep for the end of good calls. You did the right thing yesterday by leaving. I opened the mail. Red flag confetti fell out in slow motion. A credit card I did not ask for. Welcome, Evelyn.
Your caregiver card is here. Caregiver. The return address was a bank I have never courted. To a P.O. box I have never cozied. I checked the address window. My name. Correct. The street. Mine. The unit, there is no unit. That meant someone had changed my profile somewhere to try a sloppy reroute. I took a photo, front and back, 014 and 015, and slid the envelope into a clear sleeve like a butterfly I planned to show to the science fair. Elder wisdom reflection. The minute a detail is off, don't fix it and move on pause and write it down. The brain is a generous editor. Paper is not. When you're being managed, you need a witness that won't help the story hide. At 10:20, a ding calendar invite from Mara Memory Screening. Quick and easy, Tuesday at 3 p.m. A clinic whose name sounded like a spa for anxious paperwork. I declined and replied, I will schedule any health evaluations myself with Dr. Larkin. I'll let you know my appointment. 10 seconds later, just trying to help. 10 seconds after that, from Colton resistance, is a symptom. I screenshotted both, labeled 022 and 023, and put my phone face down so it could think about its friends. Quick, quirky sidebar, the humble binder clip, patented in 1910 by Louis Baltzley, was invented because his writer father needed to keep manuscripts from shedding pages. It holds quietly, without leaving holes evidence's best friend. I clipped my new stack of screenshots, envelopes, and notes into a folder I named with extravagant obviousness, Do Not Touch. I walked the perimeter of the house as if it were a sentence, and I, the copy editor. The side yard's blue recycling bin was a little too empty for a Tuesday. Colton is a thrower away. A tidier of inconvenient fact. I lifted the lid and found nothing, which is precisely how absence tattles. Inside, the office cabinet's top file had been returned one tab off. The printer, which I rarely touch, had its paper tray out by a thumb's width. My fingerprints live in kitchens. Not on toners, little disturbances, like polite ghosts. I took pictures of the neatness. Deviousness loves tidy. Dr. Larkin's office offered me a same day at 2:15 with the nurse practitioner who has wielded a blood pressure cuff like a truth teller since 2003. Baseline cognition, my request. I told her, no audience, no ambush. All questions permitted. She agreed. At the clinic. I aced the clock drawing analog. Please. I am not a heathen. Remembered 5 words after a gentle delay. Subtracted 7s with the panache of a former bookkeeper who still respects 7s. And named 12 animals without cheating with varieties of dog. My pulse calmed in public. I'll chart this, she said. If any surprise paperwork arrives from anyone else, tell us. Also consider a letter to your chart. No third-party scheduling. Assessments at patient request only. I dictated it and signed in blue like a woman who likes her originals obvious. Joke 2 glanced at the wall poster about fall risks and whispered. My risk category is tripping over other people's assumptions. On my way out, I stopped by records and requested copies of last year's labs, this year's visits, and a fancy word I enjoyed saying at a window audit log. The clerk blinked at my thoroughness and then blossomed into competence. There is no joy quite like watching a bureaucrat meet her moment. I slid the packet into my folder and told the binder clip it was beloved. Back home, I discovered the first misdelivered thing, a glossy postcard peeking from the screen door crack, addressed to family of Evelyn, inviting them to a Caring Pathway seminar on navigating a loved one's decline, complete with free muffins and questionable ethics. The RSVP QR code had a note, bring POA drafts for review. Colton might as well have taped his business card to it. I dated, photographed, and filed it. 041042. Academic phrase and core, I held myself to 1 per day. The rest of the vocabulary I gave friendlier names traps equal muffins. Ambush equals surprise paperwork. Manipulation equals helping.
It made the page less theatrical and my spine more so. June arrived at noon with sandwiches and her crisis purse. We ate at the dining table like witnesses, not jurors. I gave her a show and tell of the morning. She gave me a to-do inside a compliment. "You're 2 steps ahead," she said. "Now do your passwords like a woman who has seen a heist movie." We set up a password manager, fed it ugly strings of punctuation, and wrote the master key on a card that went into the lockbox Walter bought the year the basement decided to become a river. While June washed the 2 plates with the reverence of a person who knows kitchens are churches, I checked the small camera over the back porch, a modest motion-activated witness my neighbor Ray installed when raccoons thought my compost bin was a nightclub. Yesterday, 2:32 p.m., a blur, Colton's hat. Yesterday, 2:36 p.m., the red flag of his sleeve at my mailbox. I exported, labeled, clipped. I would not speculate. I would bring light. Joke 3 put on its soft shoes. If this were a heist movie, I told June, I'd be the librarian who knows where the alarm wires are. She pointed at my index cards. You're the librarian and the alarm. At Fort Beltre, Mr. Adler emailed a short script for Sunday dinner. If they present any document, he wrote, say, I'm happy to review this with counsel present. Leave a copy. Do not require my signature to remain in relationship. Then serve dessert, he added. Do not argue. The person who asks for time is the only adult in the room. I copied the sentence onto a card and tucked it under the pepper grinder where courage can reach it without knocking something over. By dusk. The house had learned my new posture. The step kept its creak to itself. The fridge hummed like a metronome that approves of sevens. I took my 10 minutes at the bench, this time with the folder on my lap, and let the plaque bless me for whoever needs 10 minutes of public goodness. I needed exactly that to remember the city owed me civility and I could require it of kin. Before bed, I made my list for tomorrow: utility accounts, pins, and notes. Beneficiaries confirm all safe deposit audit. Post office hold mail if necessary. And one more call, Detective Morales. Cards on table. Just a heads up about potential document fraud, no theatrics. I set out Sunday's tablecloth to practice the calm of hosting. I placed the good knife where it belonged in a drawer until recipes called it by name, not plots. Then I wrote my 3 lines. The receipts for a day that stayed adult. Chain of custody turns rumor into proof and panic into paper. The binder clip deserves a holiday. When someone tries to fast forward your life, press pause in blue ink. I slept like a witness who had finally found her pen. By morning, the folder had gained a little gravity, the way a suitcase does when you admit the weather might change. I set the table for research tea to my right, legal pad to my left. The binder clip like a little jaw that knew when to bite, and opened my laptop with librarian posture. If they were building a case, I would learn the shape of the courtroom they were trying to drag me into. Academic phrase of the day: least restrictive alternative. The public argument that when someone needs help, the law should choose the lightest touch that solves the problem: a bill pay helper, a joint account, a healthcare proxy. Not jump straight to full guardianship that strips rights like a bad haircut. I wrote it in blue and underlined it because blue means original thought now. I started with the basics, what guardianship removes. Driving, signing contracts, choosing doctors, where you live, who you see, whether your money moves with your consent or with a signature you don't control. The word ward kept popping up wearing a sweater from the 19th century. Jokes usually rush in to keep me from rusting. Joke one knocked and then sat down, hat in hand. Some words don't want company. Every site used the same phrase for people who can no longer make or communicate responsible decisions. I said it out loud 3 times so my house could hear what the stakes were if a clinic with a clipboard decided to be lazy with its nouns. The kettle agreed by huffing at a polite volume. I called legal aid and asked for their elder unit. imagining hold music that practiced patience without getting smug. A woman named Salma came on with a voice like sanded wood, I explained. Briefly. She finished my sentences respectfully. We see this, she said. We don't assume villains. We do assume pressure. 2 action items gather alternatives. You prefer representative payee. Supported decision-making agreement. Limited power of attorney. You control and draft a short capacity statement from your primary care. Also, write a 1-page values memo for future you and for any judge who ever squints at your file. We set an appointment for Wednesday. She didn't say bring muffins, which I took as a sign of good character. Elder wisdom reflection. You don't need to win the future in one conversation. Make it do push-ups, 1 page for values, 1 document for intent, 1 appointment that outlives panic. Bureaucracy loves paper more than drama. Give it paper. I phoned Dr. Larkin's office again and requested precisely what Salma had named a capacity note cognition within normal limits for age. Baseline recorded. No concerns about decisional ability today, and a sentence about my excellent blood pressure to tuck in as a flower. The nurse practitioner smiled in her voice. Happy to, she said. And I'm adding the no third-party scheduling flag to your chart header in red. It will shout at anyone who tries. Bless the honest shout. Next on my list, beneficiaries. I logged into the retirement custodian and found the screen where love becomes percentages. June, 100%. I printed the confirmation and slid it into the folder with the reverence of a choir robe. The credit union's portal confirmed I was myself and that nobody else was coughing on my savings. Good. I set texts to ping June for any withdrawals above my newly fussy threshold. Quick, quirky sidebar if you fold a legal-size page into thirds and staple on the short edge. You've made what paralegals call a court fold. It keeps the caption visible in a file and makes clerks love you. I court folded my capacity note request and felt important for 12 seconds. At 11:12, a new email chimed from a clinic with an anodyne name and a logo that looked like a fern trying to be reassuring. We look forward to your cognitive wellness screen. Tuesday at 3 p.m., Dr. S. My decline yesterday had converted to a we look forward. I replied with the sentence, Mr. Adler had drafted me in a different context. I'm happy to review scheduling with my counsel and my physician. Do not add or maintain any appointments without my request. I CC'd Dr. Larkin. The fern wrote back instantly with, understood, polite. But the speed had the sweat of someone closing a tab. I took my 10 minutes at the bench to keep my blood friendly. The plaque did its job. The elm spelled patience. The bus exhaled like a well-trained lung. A teenager asked if he could sit. I moved over. Finals, he said, gesturing at his forehead like that's where trigonometry lives. Evidence, I said, tapping my folder. We did not inquire further into each other's trials. Citizenship in public often looks like parallel suffering under shade. Back home, I called the post office to ask about a mail hold if I needed one and to flag my address for no forwarding without in-person ID. The clerk cheered like I'd made her day more interesting. You'd be amazed, she said. People try to forward grandma to a P.O. box all the time. I would not be amazed. I would be prepared. I added the confirmation number to my notes and tucked a printout under the salt shaker, the new staging area for courage. Detective Morales called at 2:03. Your lawyer briefed me, she said, voice even. What you have isn't a crime yet, but it is a plot, and plots either fizzle or harden. Keep documenting. If anyone waves a paper in your face on Sunday, do not sign. If anyone tampers with mail, that's mine. If anyone falsifies medical records, that's mine and the board. She paused. You sound calm. That's going to confuse them. Good. Joke 2 slipped on its slippers. Confusion is my new cologne, I said. She almost laughed, then hung up with the economy of a woman allergic to speeches. I drafted my values memo in the quiet hour when the stove and the refrigerator practice a duet. 1 page. Neat. I prefer help that lets me keep practicing decisions. I want to live where my books are, see friends who don't recruit me for their feelings, and give away money with receipts. If I ever need a guardian, let it be limited, reviewed, and recited back to me in verbs I can nod to. I choose soup over spectacle, benches over pulpits, and blue ink over interpretations. I put it in the folder. The binder clip behaved like applause. The house tour for tampering resumed at 3. I found another little mischief, the upstairs desk drawer, the one that houses the dusty important passwords notebook. I retired last year, had the tiniest alignment hiccup, like a mouth trying not to smirk. I opened it. The notebook was where I left it, but the elastic band had been moved from front to back. A souvenir thief's mistake. I photographed, closed, and moved the notebook to the lockbox. The lockbox clicked shut with the small joy of metal believing in you. At 4, I ran the healthiest errand I know. I baked a lemon loaf that forgives measuring errors. Sugar, butter, eggs, flour, lemon. The chemistry of proof that life prefers kindness. I wrote Sunday 5:30 bring smug vinegar on a sticky and pressed it to the recipe so I'd stay in story, not show trial. Dinner is theater only if you rehearse the lines that ruin it. I set 2 place cards for myself in June for Saturday dry run talking points. The Mr. Adler script. The detective's phone at the top of speed dial. I walked through the sentences aloud. ASMR for courage. I'll review with counsel. Leave a copy. No signatures today. Dessert. My phone lit with Mara's name at 6:07. I let it ring twice and then answered friendly. Sunday still good, she asked. Cheerful as a pamphlet. Perfect, I said. We'll use the good plates. Bring any questions you have. We'll make a list for Mr. Adler on Monday. A beat of silence, the word Mr. Adler bouncing around and knocking things off her mental shelves. Sure, she said. We'll bring salad and receipts, I added kindly. Everyone sleeps better with receipts. Quick, quirky sidebar. Second, helping the crinkle imprint from a notary's embosser isn't the legal part, the signature and stamp are, but that dry. Raised seal is often how our eyes decide a paper is real. I have decided the crinkle in my folder is the sound of my boundaries waking up. When the sky turned that charitable gray that makes porches look like therapy. I took out the 3 photos from yesterday's porch camera hat, sleeve, mailbox, and wrote dates and times on sticky flags for each. I didn't accuse the images of anything. I let them sit like they were waiting their turn at the microphone. Before bed, I moved the good knife farther back in the drawer, not because I expected melodrama, but because I refused to help it if it stops by. I taped 1 more line inside the pantry door. Under the kettle rule, if a paper appears, the oven goes off and so do I. Short, strong, executable. Then I wrote my 3 lines for the day, receipts for my ribs. Least restrictive alternative is not just law, it's love with a conscience. Capacity isn't a vibe, it's a note in blue, a clock drawn round, and 7 subtracted with dignity. Calm is confusing to plotters. Cultivate it like a lemon tree. I slept the way paper sleeps, when it's been filed in the right tab flat, available, and ready to be useful in the morning. At 4:12 a.m., the house woke me the way a careful friend does by holding its breath. The refrigerator paused its sermon. The old step with the polite creak decided to be noble. Air moved wrong. I sat up and let my eyes adjust to the dark that knows this room. There a slice of streetlight across the hallway wall, interrupted briefly. The way a page is when a finger turns it, side door. My feet found the floor like a secret handshake. I took my phone, slid the camera to video, and tuck myself into the shadow on the landing where the banister turns one of those architectural commas that let sentences change direction without starting over. A whisper of metal. The tiniest complaint of the hinge that Nova had not yet corded with oil. Then, whisper voices. The kind that practice innocence even when no one's judging.
"Leave the light off," Colton said. "Her bedroom faces the street."
"I know which way my mother sleeps," Mara answered. Brittle, like a calendar stuck between months. They were in my kitchen again, and for the first time I watched them like an audience, not a mother. My phone blinked its little red dot. I shaded it with my thumb. The glow of his screen lit the counter. He slid a folder out of his backpack, the cheap kind you buy in bulk for schemes, and produced a stapled stack General Durable Power of Attorney. The font did that thing cheap legal templates do where they pretend to be majestic. He placed it beside my real will. Academic phrase of the day, pretexting the public argument that you can gain access to information or spaces by adopting a purpose that sounds helpful enough to silence the part of people that guards the door. Colton wore help like cologne. "They said she keeps passwords in that little notebook," he murmured, opening my desk drawer with the intimacy of a thief who thinks tidiness is consent. His hand faltered empty, then moved to the printer, tugged the tray, checked the back panel, and smiled at the USB port like it owed him a favor. Mara stood at the counter with a portable scanner the size of a hardback. She fed it my property tax bill with the care of someone laminating a lie. "Stop breathing on it," she hissed when he leaned too close. "We just need a clean copy. Then we fill out the forwarding form. We present the concerns. We have the appointment. We're not the first people to save a parent from herself." I watched her mouth on the phrase "save a parent," and something in me, old and calm, took notes. I stayed very still when fear wanted to sprint. I gave it a list record. Timestamp. Don't confront. I angled the phone, caught his hat, her wristwatch, the portable scanner, the template title, the way his finger traced the signature line like a man rehearsing someone else's hand. Elder wisdom reflection when you discover a leak. Don't yell at the roof in the rain. Slide a bowl under the drip. Note the rate, then. In daylight. Climb safely with a friend who knows ladders. Panic makes bad repairs. They divided tasks with the efficiency of people who confuse crispness with virtue. He opened his email and took a picture of my driver's license where it lives because I live alone and keep sensible habits in a clear sleeve for emergency rooms that deserve speed. He angled the phone so the hologram didn't glare. "Perfect," he whispered, as if he were praising God for making scanners. She found my post office key on the little dish by the door and lifted it like a question she'd already answered. "We'll file the change online," she said. "The postcard goes to the P.O. box, we confirm, and we can monitor for anything troubling." I pictured my bank statements arriving in a metal unit numbered for strangers, while my house learned to wait for envelopes that never came. Quick, quirky sidebar, most color laser printers and some scanners embed faint yellow microdots printer steganography, encoding the device's serial number and timestamp on every page. It's practically invisible, but a technician or a decent detective can read it like a diary. I whispered thank you to whatever engineer decided fraud should leave freckles. Colton snapped photos of my utilities list account numbers lined up like teeth and whispered the word auto pay with the reverence of a televangelist. He took a breath after each small theft, as if decency were held in with a belt and had to be let out a notch. "We'll start with confusion episodes," he said. Stove, lost card, hiding bills in cookbooks. "Pickling," Mara said, and almost laughed. The kind of laugh you practice in a mirror. "We're building a file, not a case." "Same thing," he said, different lighting. I filmed until my knuckles thought about shivering. Then I slid back into the bedroom. Set the phone on the dresser with the lens tucked under a scarf. and breathed the smallest breath. The refrigerator resumed its hymn, the step refrained from gossip. After 10 minutes. The side door did its tiny hinge cry again, their exit followed by the sound of a car starting with the confidence of a person who believes the world keeps idling for him. I waited another 2 minutes. The way a lifeguard waits to blow the whistle until the kid surfaces twice. Then I padded to the kitchen and turned on only the under cabinet light, the kind of light you can stand inside without waking your own nerves. The counter told the story, my tax bill slightly off square. A faint rectangle of lint where the portable scanner had rested. A smear of something like lotion on the printer tray, the post office key dish 1 degree to the left. The folder he brought sat open to the signature page, my name spelled correctly in a font that didn't know me. Joke when bent to tie its shoe, I told the fridge. If you have a lawyer, now's your moment. And it hummed its best impersonation of counsel. I didn't touch the papers. I photographed them where they lay. Ruler beside them for scale, because television has taught me that crooked lines make liars arrogant. I opened the porch camera app and pulled the clips 410 Colton's hat, 411 Mara's tote, 447, both leaving with the portable scanner silhouette like a low-profile pet. I labeled and clipped and backed up twice because 1 copy is a hope and 2 is a plan. At 5:05, I texted Detective Morales, no panic. Just a delivery video and stills from 4:12-4:47 a.m. Side door entry. Scanning documents, template POA present. Possible mail key removal. Will not confront. Sunday dinner meeting remains. The dots pulsed. Her reply was swift, received. Do not touch surfaces. I'll send a tech for latent prints at 8. Consider moving your spare key and changing the side door cylinder. I texted back. Spare has been promoted to retirement. Joke 2 nodded at the 3rd step, you're relieved, I whispered. And the step accepted with dignity. I made tea, not because tea fixes anything, but because hands need employment when the mind is archiving. On the inside of the pantry door, under the kettle rule, I wrote a new line. If a person arrives with a paper, my hands will stay on the table, short, strong, executable. The sky remembered blue. Birds began their union meeting. I sat at the table where my daughter had scanned my future and wrote my own page. Steady as a nurse. This Sunday. I will not argue with people who brought a scanner to my house before dawn. I will offer salad tongs in the sentence Mr. Adler gave me. I will be the adult who asks for time. The tech came at 8 in a jacket that announced evidence the way a dog announces ball, powder, brush, tape, care. He was kind to the printer, respectful to the counter, and, I thought, quietly delighted to be taking fingerprints in a kitchen that smelled faintly of lemon loaf and intent. You'd be surprised how often the guilty moisturize, he said. And I smiled with exactly half my mouth. At 9, June arrived with a gaze like a straight edge and a thermos that believes in mercy. I showed her the video, the photos, the way the folder's cheapness revealed itself under the under-cabinet light. We didn't curse, we didn't pity. We made a sandwich of plan top slice legal, middle vigilance, bottom grace. Then we practiced the line again, together. Over the hush of the kettle, I'm happy to review this with counsel present. Leave a copy. Do not require my signature to remain in relationship. Quick, quirky sidebar. Second helping, a surprising number of official-looking forms online include metadata author names. Template vendors. Even the time zone of the computer that generated them. If a PDF tells you it was born in GMT+3, while your son-in-law swears he downloaded it from a local clinic, that timestamp might introduce him to a different kind of morning. Sunday needed staging, not speeches. I woke before the kettle and laid out the props of an ordinary meal tablecloth ironed into good behavior. Plates that know where they live, the salad bowl that tells the truth about lettuce. Then, on the sideboard. I placed the instruments of a quiet counter move, 2 manila envelopes, 1 reel, 1 decoy, 3 index cards with Mr. Adler's sentence in my neatest courthouse cursive, and a fresh pen that refuses to skip when courage needs ink. Academic phrase of the day: procedural justice, the public argument that people accept outcomes more readily when the process feels fair, transparent, and calm, even if they don't get what they came for. I decided to give Sunday dinner a procedure sequence. Seating, soup, sentence. By 9, the locksmith was at the side door, cheerful as a weather report. Cylinder swap, new strike plate, no drama, he said. And did exactly that. I watched his hands, the competence of someone who diagnoses by sound. He showed me how the key wanted to turn, smooth and decisive. Everyone under this roof should feel like that, I said, mostly to the door. He nodded the way tradespeople nod when metaphor shows up to pay cash. Elder wisdom reflection. If you can't build a fortress, build a habit. Locks fail. Rituals teach bones what to do when noise arrives. June came with hydrangeas and the exact thermos Mercy requires. We set the table together like women who have failed at theater and succeeded at soup. She tucked the index cards under my plate and the pepper grinder. Reachable without fanfare. If you say nothing but the one line, you win, she reminded me. Our job is to leave paper where panic hoped for performance. I called the post office again. The clerk, now a character in my unfolding civics lesson. Flag on holds, no forwarding without ID, if a change of address arrives. We call you, she recited, and I brought my boss up to speed. Promotion through paperwork, my favorite genre. Next, the bank manager quiet. Careful confirmed that any caregiver card attempt would bounce like a bad check off a trampoline. Also, Miss Hart, she said, leaning in as if conspirators. We can put a branch-only note on wire transfers. Nobody moves your money without you and your driver's license in the same photograph. Bless the small men and women who sit behind glass and protect strangers afternoons. Quick, quirky sidebar envelopes with the little clear plastic windows are called window face envelopes. The cellophane is technically polystyrene or glassine. The original patent dates to the 1900s and was meant to save clerks from hand addressing. I decided tonight I would hand address dignity, no windows, no shortcuts. At noon, Detective Morales called with a voice you could safely braid your day to. Layton's lifted from the printer tray and the folder. She said, "Your video is usable. We won't knock on any doors yet. Consider this a prelude." Then, in a tone halfway between aunt and prosecutor, if they bring a paper, do not react to the nouns, react to the verbs. Leave, review, counsel, copy. Then eat dessert. I repeated the verbs until they tasted like muscle memory. I made a lemon chicken that keeps secrets and a pot of beans that stretches grace. I chopped parsley like hope. I set the good knife far back again because I believe in not tempting melodrama with mise en place. The house learned the sequence doorbell. Hello, coats, salad, soup, sentence, dessert, goodbye. I whispered it to the spoons so they wouldn't be surprised. 3 o'clock brought a text from Mara. "We'll be early, need to talk before dinner," I replied. "Arrive at 5:30 as planned. Dinner is our meeting. Order is our friend." A ... appeared, then vanished. Process outran appetite. At 4, Ray knocked, cap in hand, an excuse of returning a borrowed trowel riding shotgun on his actual purpose. He surveyed the new lock with municipal pride, sipped a little Mercy from June's thermos, and tapped the policy sheet I taped inside the pantry response times. Visits, requests, apologies. He laughed softly at the kettle rule. "Add a bench clause," he suggested. "Any conversation that forgets its manners can adjourn under the elm for 10 minutes of public goodness." I wrote it down. Laws need shade. Joke once smoothed the tablecloth. I told the salad spinner it was our court stenographer record only. no opinions, and it worded its best approximation of neutrality. At 5:29, I put the index card on my lap like a napkin and breathed the way Dr. Larkin's nurse taught me 5 in, 5 hold, 5 out. The doorbell at precisely 5:30 sounded pleased with itself. Mara's smile arrived first, quick and veneered. Colton followed in that carefully casual sport coat that believes itself reasonable. They carried a salad with balsamic that introduced itself too loudly. "Smells amazing," he said, peering into the kitchen like an appraiser. "Sit," I said, warm as a towel from the dryer. "We'll eat, then talk." We bowed briefly to lettuce. I complimented the smug vinegar. Small weather traveled across Mara's face, relief at normalcy. Impatience to get to the paperwork. I poured soup in measured ladles and put a slice of lemon chicken on each plate. Equal as policy. Forks negotiated, words waited. "Mom," she began, napkin folded like a contract. "We brought some documents we think will..." I lifted a hand, palm a small porch light. "After broth," I said. Clear heads read better. We ate quietly, the house doing its wood hymn. When plates were cleared and the kettle had given its soft cue, I nodded. "Now," I said. Colton placed a folder on the table as if delivering a baby. Titles in template font stared up: General Durable, Power of Attorney. HIPAA authorization, also template. Third-party notification. He slid a pen across, practiced. It just simplifies things. No rush, of course. Sign and will. I took the top page and laid it flat. Index card under my left hand like a lifeline. I read the first paragraph aloud so the room could hear the nouns practice their muscle. Then I spoke the sentence I had polished to a whisper. "I'm happy to review this with counsel present. Leave a copy. Do not require my signature to remain in relationship." Silence arranged itself. June sipped her mercy like a professional. The salad spinner pretended to be a plant. Mara tried a soft pivot. "It's just, we're worried." "Good," I said. Concern is a verb when it brings meals. Rides? Or phone calls that end with, "you decide." Concern is a noun when it arrives with a pen. Colton attempted authority. Refusal can look like lack of insight, Evelyn. "We have a memory screen scheduled." "No," I said. Gentle as a folded towel, I schedule my body. Dr. Larkin and I already completed a baseline. Here's the letter. And I placed the blue ink original on the table where sight could do its job. If you'd like to read it, you can read. If you'd like to sign anything, you can sign the guest book after dessert. Joke, I took off its shoes. "No one leaves without signing the guest book," I added. "It's the only binding instrument in this house tonight." They blinked. He recovered first. "We need to be proactive finances. Mail, medication." "Here are the proactive steps I've taken," I said. Setting the real manila envelope beside the decoy. Trusted contact on accounts, alert set, mail flagged, capacity letter in file. If I want additional help, I will draft limited powers with Mr. Adler. Today, we're having cake. "Cake," Mara repeated, as if testing the legal standing of flour. "If you'd like to leave copies." "Leave copies," I said, nodding at their folder. "If you'd like to keep relationship, keep your hands off my pen." June coughed into a napkin that happened to say "Amen." Quick, quirky sidebar in family systems research. Triangulation names the way tension between two people often recruits a third to stabilize the wobble. Papers can be triangles. So can casseroles. Tonight I chose cutlery and made sure every fork stayed in its lane. Colton tried one last angle. Resistance is a symptom. The phrase arrived like a man who believes cargo pants are character. "Boundaries are health," I answered, calm as bread. Dessert. We ate lemon cake that forgave everything it touched. I boxed 2 pieces for their ride home, because good manners are my abundance, and because I wanted them to have something honest in their hands. At the door, I handed back the folder lighter by the weight of the copies they'd left. "Thank you for bringing your concerns," I said. "I'll review and respond through counsel." and Thursday at 6 remains Noah time. Bring him with verbs and let him pin his next square. Mara's face did a small, unpracticed thing. Thursday, she said softly. Okay. Colton nodded at the lock like he had notes. When the door closed, the house exhaled. I washed the dessert plates like witnesses. June dried and hung the dish towel square as a conclusion. We did not debrief miles of feelings. We listed verbs accomplished and left the rest to sleep with the forks. Joke 3 tapped the counter. I told the kettle it was our bailiff and awarded it a raise extra polish. More patient pauses. Before bed, I slid their copies into the folder. Labeled in blue, presented 5:45 p.m., no signatures. I added a sticky to the pantry if a document enters during dessert. It leaves in a manila coat, not my bloodstream. Short, strong, executable. Then I wrote my 3 lines, the day's receipts. Procedural justice makes even a kitchen table feel like a fair room. Locks are hardware, rituals are software. Peace needs both. A single sentence, rehearsed, can outlast a folder full of fonts. Monday wakes like a courtroom with the lights dimmed quiet, expectant, pencils lined up like tiny gavels. I put on the cardigan that behaves, tie my hair back in paperwork mode, and reread last night's note in blue, presented 5:45 p.m., no signatures. The folder sits on the table, breathing like a cat that knows it's done a day's work. I make coffee the way a witness swears, in slow, audible, honest, and dial Mr. Adler. He answers on ring 2, voice ironed. I give him the precise dawn scan, template POA, Sunday performance, copies left, capacity letter on file, prints lifted. Good, he says. We aim for daylight, not drama. Detective Morales and I propose a tidy errand, confirm the Fern Clinic's involvement, then invite everyone to stand in the same fluorescent truth. He explains the plan with the calm of a man who has folded storms into manila envelopes, an administrative visit to the clinic. Audit logs printed. Medical board liaison present. We show what we have. Nobody signs anything. Muffins optional. Academic phrase of the day. Ex parte communication. The public argument that decisions shouldn't be shaped by one-sided, off-the-record contact. When medicine or courts drift into ex parte, outcomes wobble. Today is about wobble repair. By 10, I'm in Mr. Adler's office, which smells faintly of legal pads and citrus wipes. He reviews my videos with that narrowed, satisfied look mechanics wear when the rattle matches the manual. Printer microdots. He nods. Clinic Fern? Change of address breadcrumbs. And the 412 entrance. It's a braid. Joke 1 clears its throat, I tell him. I used a ruler for scale because television trained me, and he says, for once. TV did homework. We walk 2 blocks to the clinic. The waiting room has a wall of watercolor leaves and a diffuser working overtime to sell serenity. Behind the desk, the Fern logo beams its harmless face. Detective Morales is already there. Blazer quiet, badge not showing off. A woman from the board, Dr. Patel, stands with a clipboard that looks like it could outstare a scalpel. Introductions polite, nouns aligned. The clinic manager appears. The practiced smile of a person who keeps fires small. Morales starts gentle. We'd like your audit logs for Ms. Hart's record scheduling, user IDs, any notes plus the outbound call list for Friday through Sunday. The manager blinks, then offers a HIPAA objection. Dr. Patel answers with the crispness of a syllabus patient present. Patient consent. Oversight authority engaged. Papers shuffle. Printers hum. Toner gets its day. We're led to a small consultation room with chairs that apologize for their own fabric. Logs arrive timestamps like a metronome. Friday, 10:11 a.m. Inbound call from M. Hart daughter, Friday, 10:29. Dr. S. note family concerned, patient forgetful. Recommend screen, Friday 11:02 appointment created by S admin, Saturday 8:15 p.m. File note family to bring existing POA for review. Dr. Patel's eyebrow moves half a centimeter in medical supervision units. That's a siren. Ex parte, she says, and makes a square on her paper around the phrase. Elder wisdom reflection when you need systems to behave. Bring everyone who believes in daylight and put the paper on the table. The person who insists on the fluorescent room loves you more than the one who offers candles. At 11:40, the front desk calls back, "Your family just arrived." The word tries to carry 3 meanings. It drops 1. Mara and Colton walk in with the energy of people who believe proactive is a personality. He carries a folder that has already met my counter. She wears determination like perfume. They clock Mr. Adler, then Morales, then the board badge. To their credit, they do not pivot toward the exit. "We were told there'd be a conversation," Colton says, his consonants counting themselves. "There will," Morales answers, "in this room, with logs and verbs." We sit. Mr. Adler lays out the sequence like a well-tempered scale. "Miss Hart declined your third-party scheduling. She obtained a baseline from her physician. You entered her home before dawn yesterday. You scanned her documents. You presented a template, POA at dinner. Today we see that Dr. S.'s office created an appointment based on family statements without patient consent. We are here to reset the process to legal and ethical." He lets the words land, 1 chair at a time. Mara looks at me, then at the papers. "We were worried," she says, the sentence reaching for a place to sit. "I accept worry." I answer, "I don't accept paperwork in the dark." Dr. Patel speaks to the clinic manager. Voice calm enough to carry weight. Cancel the screen. Note in chart assessments only at patient request. Document ex parte family contacts for internal review. Dr. S will receive guidance. To us, she adds, if a formal complaint is desired, the board will receive it. The fern wilts a degree. Quick, quirky sidebar. Why are legal pads yellow? Competing theories, cheap dye that made scraps look uniform. Easier on the eyes under gaslight. Or, my favorite folk version, so drafts wouldn't be confused with official white documents. Whatever the truth. The 125-inch left margin, the downline exists to catch corrections that shouldn't bully the sentence. I keep my own downline now, in blue, for courage edits. Morales slides 2 clear photos across Colton's hat, reflected in my porch light, the scanner's silhouette on my counter. "We can talk about burglary, unlawful entry later," she says. "For now, we'll begin with attempted identity theft and mail tampering, both of which prefer daylight, Mr. Hart. Would you like to explain why you photographed your mother-in-law's ID card?" Colton opens and closes his mouth twice. The folder in his lap loses 0.3 pounds. Mara attempts a salvage. "We were trying to arrange things, bills, appointments." "Arrange," Mr. Adler echoes, as if offering a word back to the dictionary. Arrangements happen with the person, not around them. He turns to me. "Miss Hart, any arrangements you want to make?" "Yes," I say, steady as groceries. "If I want help, I'll draft a limited POA that sunsets and requires reporting. I'll name who I trust and what they can do, and I'll keep my keys." Joke 2 peeks over the downline. "Spare key is retired with full benefits," I add. Morales allows herself an atom of a smile. Dr. Patel asks the manager for 1 more log, who added the note inviting family to bring a pre-existing POA. The screen gives up a username. She writes it down. Slow. Somewhere beyond the watercolor leaves. A policy begins to rewrite itself. Colton leans forward, choosing a hill. Refusal to cooperate can indicate lack of insight. He delivers it like a proverb. I consider the sentence as if it were a spoon and place it back on the napkin. So can scanning someone's life at 4:12 a.m., I say. Today we choose insight that can withstand noon. Silence does its useful work. The clinic manager clears her throat and says the most adult sentence in the room. I'm sorry. We should not have scheduled without Miss Hart. We will correct the chart and review our intake scripts. Real verbs, visible. Morales stands, ending the scene without turning it into theater. You'll both receive a letter. Do not touch her mail or accounts. Do not enter her property again without invitation. You may support her on Thursdays at 6 by delivering a child with library books. She hands them a card. If you have questions, use this number instead of 4 a.m. We leave the clinic like people who have folded an umbrella after a storm thinks better of itself. Outside, the light is the color of clean paper. Mr. Adler turns to me. Lunch, he asks. Yes, I say. Somewhere that respects receipts. Over soup, we talk next steps, a supported decision-making agreement I control. Naming June as supporter for financial questions and Mr. Adler for legal. A tiny document that says, ask me first in work clothes. We discuss whether to file the formal complaint now or hold it like a card in a quiet game. Either way, he says. We keep the record radiant. I walk home by way of the bench. A woman in scrubs sits for exactly 9 minutes. Shoes whispering relief. She reads the plaque and presses her palm to it, as if reading Braille. I do not interrupt our tiny republic of public goodness. I take my 10, count my breath, and let the bus exhale for both of us. Back in the kitchen, I tape a fresh line inside the pantry door under the bench cloths. If a decision can survive noon, it can survive me. Short, strong, executable. Then I call June. She answers with, well, and I tell her, pulse steady, daylight works. We schedule Thursday's NOAA hour and agree on lemon bars because some victories prefer powdered sugar. Jokpa pads through in socks? I tell the printer it can stop blushing. It's a witness now, not a suspect. The printer whirs once in something like relief. Before bed, I write my 3 lines receipts for a day that chose verbs. Ex parte shrinks in rooms with logs and witnesses. Systems behave better when you invite the parts that love noon. I am keeping my keys and my downline for courage. The fan writes its cursive. The watch keeps time without swagger. In the hall, the new cylinder sleeps like metal that trusts its job. And I do, too. Tuesday feels like the day after a long storm that didn't quite get its act together lawns a little shinier. Air doing its penitent cool. The house proud of its new cylinder like a kid with fresh laces. I make coffee with ceremony. Lay the folder on the table like a cat that chose my lap, and call June to confirm tonight's drill no speeches. Only verbs. Academic phrase of the day. Confirmation bias. The public argument that once a story flatters your fear, your brain edits reality to match it. Collecting evidence like seashells and ignoring the tide. It's how she hid a bill in a cookbook becomes a diagnosis. Even if the cookbook was called Household Budget and the bill was paid. Mr. Adler emails a quiet proposal. Let's formalize supported decision-making SDM. It's the least restrictive alternative, with teeth names your helpers, keeps your signature yours, and gives any future judge a map of your intent. I print the draft, underline the verbs consult, advise, assist, not decide, and slot it behind the capacity letter. The binder clip preens. It likes company with posture. Elder wisdom reflection. When you can't control people's stories about you. Strengthen your paperwork about yourself. Rumors expire. Documents age into guardians. At 10. Detective Morales and I do a short, not dramatic call. If they try the mail angle again. We're ready, she says. Postmaster inspection folks love a clean timeline. She asks permission to place a tiny canary in my box, a decoy letter addressed to a slightly misspelled version of me. The kind that auto-forwards reveal. Joke one taps the inbox, I tell her I answer to several spellings. But my bank only answers to the one with receipts. She almost laughs. Also, she adds, if you're up for it, a quick walkthrough of Dr. S's office Thursday morning. Not a confrontation, just a request for your chart and the sign-in logs. Noonlight. Bring your downline and your blue pen. I call the post office to bless the canary letter. The clerk, who knows me as the woman with bird stamps, cheers softly. We'll log anything weird and hold a tray if needed, she says. The small government of stamps and trays steadies me in a way broccoli never has. Nova, my handy person turned tenant, appears with a tote of tools and a jar of screws that jingle like promises. Friday night maintenance is migrating, she says, half grin. Emergency Wednesday, add a second deadbolt to the side door and a slide latch inside you can throw without hunting for keys. We install quietly. Her drill speaks with the calm of experience. I hand her the hardware like altar bread. House feels smarter, I say. House is practicing boundaries, she answers. We high-five with work gloves, the most sensible applause.
Quick, quirky sidebar, ultraviolet powder. The kind crime labs use clings invisibly to skin and lights up under blacklight, a polite tattletale. Morales offers to dust the mailbox key dish if we want to teach curiosity to mind its manners. I accept. The dish glows faintly later like a halo with opinions.
At noon. I sit with Mr. Adler in his office of citrus wipes and yellow pads. We tailor the SDM June for finances, translate interest rates into English. Adler for legal. Remind me to breathe before signing anything. Dr. Larkin for medical. Explain options and side effects like you're talking to your cousin. Each helper initials the limits advise. Assist. Access information with me present. Never sign for me. Sunset reviews every January. This reads like a love letter to grown-up autonomy, Adler says. That's the assignment, I answer. Joke two bows to the yellow pad. I thank Gaslight-era stationery for protecting my modern nerves.
We draft one more page, notice of communication preference. A cordial note that says, in plainer English than most clinics manage. Do not schedule me through relatives. Do not accept unsigned forms. When in doubt, call me. Adler calls it policy at the doorframe, and I picture taping a copy to my metaphorical forehead. Maybe the pantry door will volunteer. June swings by for lunch with the look of a woman who trusts lists more than omens. We practice Thursday's chart request lines as if speaking softly could butter bureaucracy. Hello, I'm the patient. I'd like a copy of my chart, the audit log for the last 30 days, and a list of any non-patient contacts. We add a smile that isn't a coupon. She loads the phrases into her mouth like good bread. We are not a scene, she says. We are paperwork with shoes. By 2. The canary envelope arrives, our harmless spy. I photograph it in my mailbox, note the exact tilt of its stamp, and leave it where it belongs, if it migrates. My folder will know the date. The bench under the elm throws a patch of shade across the sidewalk like a blessing with elbows. I give it 10 minutes. Watch 2 school kids argue amicably about the metaphysics of a popsicle. Is it food or a race against time? And remember that not all conflicts want a rope. I spend the late afternoon doing environmental nudges that make procedures feel like furniture. The printer lives now on a small cart with locking wheels. The guest room desk gets a tray labeled "Leave copies here," because hopeful thieves hate labels. The pantry door gets the new sheet-supported decision-making agreement helpers listed, verbs highlighted. I position a blue pen on a string, the kind banks use, beside it. Jokebug clears its throat. I tell the pen it's my bouncer. It puffs up without ink smudge. Toward dusk. My phone lights with a text from Mara. Can we talk? Just us. I look at the clock. Look at the kettle. Look at the pantry door that has learned to stand its ground. Tomorrow, 4 p.m., park bench. I reply, 10 minutes first, then soup if needed. She replies with a single period and ellipsis that try to be minimalist. Boundaries stayed awake past their bedtime. I reward them with a lemon bar.
Evening loosens the neighborhood's shoulders. I take a slow loop and end at the bench with the canary letter still exactly where the postal worker left it, integrity observed by Oak. Bus and sky. Ray ambles by. Municipal cap doing its civic duty. Trash can lid still behaving, he asks. Better than some humans, I say. He nods. Humans need lids too, keeps the raccoons out of their better instincts. We toast with thermoses and let the number 7 exhale for us both.
Back home. I assemble the Thursday packet for Dr. S.'s office, my capacity letter. SDM agreement. The do not schedule through relatives note. And a humble request for access form, signed in blue. I clip them with the binder clip that has achieved mascot status and slide the stack into a manila coat labeled noon. Please. I practice saying, I'm here for my record, to the mirror until my mouth believes it's a normal errand, like buying stamps. Which, incidentally, I also do birds remain the theme. Before bed, Caleb calls. His voice has the slight wobble of a man pulling a new map over an old landscape. Noah asked if Thursday is still square day. Always, I say. Bring verbs, not drama. He exhales. Copy. He hesitates. Mom, if Mara shows up dramatic, I'll take Noah to the park. Bench first. I answer, then park. We teach calm by using it. I add one more line inside the pantry door, under the bench clause, and above the kettle rule. If a meeting can be held at a bench first, it belongs at a table later. Short, strong, executable. Quick, quirky sidebar, second helping, canary traps in publishing plant. Slightly different fake facts in each copy to see which version leaks. The leaker reveals themselves by detail. Our canary letter plays the same tune one wrong middle initial trips any unauthorized forward. It's petty, elegant, and beloved by inspectors with tidy desks. 3 light jokes did their laps today. Broccoli V, stamps, pads V, nerves, pens as bouncers, and still. The day kept its quiet spine. I close the windows to the polite crack that lets night know it's welcome. Stack the Thursday packet by my keys and check that the slide latch throws smoothly with one fingertip. Then I write my 3 lines, the receipts my ribs like to file. When fear hunts for evidence, confirmation bias will hand it a net. Bring noon instead. SDM turns help into verbs with witnesses. My signature stays mine. A canary envelope and a bench are small governments that keep bigger ones honest. The fan writes its cursive. The watch keeps time without swagger. The new deadbolt naps like a soldier with nothing to prove. And I sleep. Not because everyone is good, but because my procedures are. And tomorrow, they will walk into an office with me wearing blue ink and daylight by noon. The house had its normal back, the kind that doesn't require acting. I moved the post office key to the lockbox and left a note by the dish that said, "Keys on strike." I placed my folder in the oven not as drama, but because nobody checks there in summer, and put a sticky on the control that read, "If this is on, remove folder first." Then I walked to the bench and gave myself 10 minutes that belonged to nobody's plan. Joke 3 straightened its tie. I told the elm I was adding no pre-dawn scanners to my household policies. And the leaves applauded like a discreet jury. Before I lay down for a noon nap, I owed my nerves. I wrote 3 lines to file the morning. Pretexting smells like help. Evidence smells like toner. Believe your nose. When rain starts at 4:12, a bowl under the drip beats a speech at 5 Hauserem. Calm in blue ink makes schemers look noisy. I slept for 40 minutes. The kind of nap that repairs handwriting. When I woke, the fridge resumed its sermon. The printer looked chastened under its dusting of powder.
and I felt. For the first time since the kitchen window was left ajar. Like I was the person in the house with the only key that mattered. At 3:40, the house feels like a theater before doors airtighty, chairs aligned, my Thursday packet stacked by the keys like a well-behaved witness. The canary letter sits where the postal worker tucked it. Stamp at a jaunty tilt I've memorized in case anyone tries to correct its posture. I pour tea into the travel mug that understands benches and tuck a spare index card into my pocket the way some people carry peppermints for emergencies of tone. Academic phrase of the day: motivated reasoning. The public argument that the brain steers facts toward the conclusion it already likes. So where worried starts collecting only the shells that prove worry was wise. Today's task is to invite a different current.
I'm at the elm, 5 minutes early. The plaque reads itself out loud in my head for whoever needs 10 minutes of public goodness, like a bailiff calling the room to order. At 4:01, Mara approaches in a sweatshirt too clean for a park and the face of someone who slept next to a printer that had opinions. She sits, but at an angle, as if the bench asked for a reference letter first. 10 minutes, I say. A gentle clerk. Okay, she says. Like okay is a hallway she's willing to walk. We breathe. A stroller squeaks. The bus exhales. I wait for the bench to do its work, then offer the smallest sentence I can live with. You were scared. Yes, she answers. Quick and mad. And tired of managing things I wasn't sure how to manage. The word tired lands with both knees. Colton said we had to get ahead of it, or the house and the money would drift. He's good at language. She runs a fingertip along the plaque's edge like it might give her a syllabus. He's less good at clocks, she adds, smaller. There's the pre-dawn in her voice. Elder wisdom reflection. When someone finally begins to tell the truth. Do not sprint to offer yours. Let their truth take a chair, pour it water, and wait until it remembers its own verbs. I did a terrible thing, she continues. Eyes on a gum wrapper the wind is privately training. Mom going in at night. I told myself it was gathering documents. I know what the words are. It was stealing a feeling I wanted to have control. We sit with the noun. 10 minutes is longer than it looks. What's the bill that's making your hands shake? I ask. She laughs, the bad kind, then shakes her head. 2, actually. The roof. And don't laugh, the orthodontist. Noah's mouth is an expensive democracy. She wipes at her cheek with the heel of her hand. Surprised it even tried to cry in public. And Colton lost a client. The schedule I had in my head started slipping. You felt like a lever that could stop the slide. Joke one raises a timid hand. If my name is on any roofer's proposals, I'd like the one with fewer cartoon shingles, I say. She huffs a very small laugh. The bus blesses us with another long sigh. Here's my offer, I say. When the bench tells me it's time to place words where they won't break, we will not use me as a lever. We will use paper. The supported decision-making agreement, SDM, I'll sign it with June, my lawyer, and Dr. Larkin. You'll be listed as a helper for house maintenance questions, translate estimates. Vet contractors. Keep me from hiring a cousin named Guy. You won't sign for me. You will bring verbs I can use. She blinks. You're including me? I'm including your competence, I say, not your panic. She nods once, like a student who has just realized the test is oral and pass-fail. Colton said refusal is a symptom. Boundaries are the treatment, I answer. Here are the shapes. I hold up a finger per rule, so even the elm can keep count. 1, no scheduling for my body. 2, no entering my house without invitation. 3, no mail games. No scanners at dawn. 4, worry is delivered as soup, rides. And you decide. 5, if money is the thing making your sentences unkind. We talk about money directly, not diagnoses by rumor.
I let each finger have a breath. 5 is the worst one, she admits. I didn't want to say it. Say it anyway, I say, evenly. Verbs only grow in air. Quick, quirky sidebar. The first public park bench dedications in the US took off in the 1920s. Cities discovered that people would fund infrastructure if the plaque let them say a sentence that would outlast their weather. Plaques are tiny essays. R says, "Goodness is a timer, not a tribunal." Her phone buzzes. She ignores it like a person who has finally decided to disappoint someone on purpose. "He's going to hate this," she says, meaning SDM, meaning my list. "He can hate it on his own time." I say, "I'm busy at 6 teaching his son to make corners meet." "I'll bring Noah," she says quickly, "and I'll sit at the far end of the bench, if that's what's helpful." Helpful is a verb when it stays boring, I say. No posts, no whispers at clinics, no caregiver cards that arrive addressed to my house like they already live here. She nods. "I canceled that," she whispers, a relief she didn't expect to defend. "I also told Dr. S's office I'd overstepped." There's that tiny, rare sentence, "I did the thing," she doesn't add but. The bench stamps this into the air like a notary who works in leaves. We stand. 10 minutes is a mercy if you don't ask it to be a miracle. Soup I offer, pointing toward home. "Another time," she says. "I'll come Thursday with Noah. I'll bring verbs." She looks at the plaque again like a student copying the board, then walks away with an ordinary gait, the most encouraging walk I know. I sit 1 more minute because benches improve digestion and decisions. Then I go home to set the table for 6 o'clock, the square pinned on the sign, "Today's verb stitch." A bowl for buttons that aren't ready, soup reheated to a kindness that doesn't ask for credit. The canary letter remains exactly where the postal service put it. Good bird. At 5:55, there's a knock that sounds like restraint. Caleb and Noah arrive with a tote of books and a grin that introduced itself under orthodontic tyranny. Mara follows. Hair in a ponytail that admits fatigue. "Verbs," she says, by way of hello. We orbit the table like 3 planets who got their gravity recalibrated. We stitch. Noah chooses a brave green and a stubborn yellow. The seam ripper earns its keep. Joke high when the bobbin throws a tantrum. We tell it the kettle rule applies and no one speaks until it spins politely. It hums its apology. Caleb reads while we press. The kind of ordinary that used to feel like a coupon and now feels like a grant. Mara sits at the far end, pouring water, not editing emotions. At the 40-minute mark, we take our 5 on the bench, and Noah reads the plaque cleanly for the first time without my finger under his words. He taps it twice, like knocking on a door that already knows his name. Back inside, soup happens the way gravity does. We eat, and no one performs, Mara says, without fanfare. I'm sorry I brought papers in the dark. My pantry door tilts its ear from the kitchen and approves the syntax I plus verb plus object. Thank you, I say. Please don't do it again. The house signs the sentence with a small wood sigh. After they leave, I set tomorrow's clothes on the chair clinic errand casual. Blue pen in my pocket. SDM packet calm in its manila coat. June will meet me at 11 for a preliminary coffee and a reminder that we are paperwork with shoes. Detective Morales texts chart request ready. Noon works. Her messages have the personality of metal that trusts itself. I check the canary letter one last time, the middle initial still wrong on purpose. Proof that fate can be tested with stationery. It's undisturbed. I write its stillness into the folder as if quiet were evidence it is. Before sleep, I tape one more small line inside the pantry. Under bench first, if money is the fear. Name money first. Short, strong, executable. Jokebot pads through with slippers. I tell the salad spinner it can clock out. The stenography portion of our conflict has adjourned. It wears a little victory. I write my 3 lines receipts for a day that chose chairs over podiums. Motivated reasoning loses volume when benches keep time. Include competence. Exclude panic. Invite verbs. 10 minutes of public goodness can reschedule a family. The fan writes its cursive. The watch keeps time without swagger. The new deadbolt sleeps without needing witnesses. Tomorrow at noon, charts and sunlight. Tomorrow at 6, a square pin straighter than last week. And somewhere between those, a woman at her own table, visible to herself, makes lunch like policy and decides to keep her pen. Noon errands wear better when you iron them with coffee. June meets me at the corner cafe, where the cups are honest and the sugar packets don't flirt. We rehearse our line, hello, I'm the patient, I'd like my chart, the audit log for the last 30 days, and a list of any non-patient contacts until it feels like one stamp, please. The Thursday packet rides in my tote like a well-behaved witness. My blue pen waits in my pocket like a bouncer who passed the background check. Academic phrase of the day: institutional accountability. The public argument that systems owe us self-correction in daylight. Not apologies whispered into carpet. Today is about seeing whether the office that tried to schedule me without me can look noon in the eye. At Dr. S's front desk, watercolor leaves still try to sell serenity. But the receptionist's posture has learned grammar. Good afternoon, I say, and slide over the signed request for access chart. Audit log, 30 days, non-patient contacts. She blinks once and says, yes, ma'am. The way people do when a script has been corrected. Dr. Patel from the board arrives with a clipboard that could outlast a hurricane. Detective Morales leans against the compliance poster like it's a friend with receipts. June stands on my left. The universal sign for reinforcements who know how to fold paper straight. We are paperwork with shoes. 15 minutes later, we're in a small room that apologizes for its chairs. The printed trail lands timestamps, user IDs, helpful relative notes. The appointment is marked canceled at patient decline. A bold, new header gleams in my chart assessments at patient request only. Dr. Patel nods once. This is better, she says, which is board for good job. Now be better forever. Elder wisdom reflection when a system fixes itself in front of you. Resist the urge to gloat. Sign with gratitude. File the copy. And leave in time for soup. Self-righteousness doesn't stack as neatly as paper. The manager offers an apology in verbs. We scheduled without authorization. We've corrected the chart. Staff retraining begins Monday. Family-only notes now trigger a callback to the patient. Morales collects a fresh audit of Friday to Tuesday phone logs and the sign-in sheet for last week. We'll keep this off theater stage, she says. Stay boring. It's safer. Quick, quirky sidebar. The Manila in Manila folders really did begin as a baka fiber from the Philippines rope for ships. Then paper tough enough for files. The color made it easy to spot originals in a storm of white. I like knowing my folder's name comes from rope. That's what good paper does, keeps things from washing away. Outside. June and I practice a ritual we invented during long ago tax season's The Good Copy Walk. You do one lap around the block holding the folder like a loaf of bread you just paid for. It tells your body you have what you came for. Lunch, she asks. Later, I say. Noah at 6, my verbs have appointments. On the way home, I check the canary letter still sitting exactly where the postal worker placed its wrong middle initial. A small yellow bird, content to sing nothing at all. My phone buzzes. Post office clerk, my ally in stamps. Heads up an online forward attempted just now, blocked by our flag. Logged. I text back a thank you with 3 birds and an invisible fist bump to the quiet machinery that keeps strangers from moving our lives by clicking. At the house, Nova has already done her competence. The slide latch throws with a fingertip. The new deadbolt sighs like metal that trusts itself. Mailbox dish got its UV halo. She reports, flicking the black light. The little glow looks like conscience, humming. Joke 1 peers over the counter. We are now a nightclub for ethics. I tell the dish. It glows in agreement.
Mr. Adler calls to finalize the supported decision-making agreement. We sign in his office, blue ink, untheatrical pens, June initials next to assist with financial questions. Dr. Larkin will add her line tomorrow for medical translation. Mr. Adler's box says legal explanations before signatures. My box, the only one that matters, says Evelyn decides. We add a sunset review each January, so future us has to look this paper in the eye. Auto-renew with proof of life. June jokes. Proof of verbs. I correct. We leave with 2 embossed copies and the feeling you get when your shoes are tied to the right feet.
Afternoon is built for small ministries. I take a tray of lemon bars to the library for the staff that stamps like church. The head librarian accepts them like a sacrament and whispers, I heard about your bench clause. We need one for story time. I write it on a sticky if we get wiggly. 10 minutes of outside. She sticks it to the cart with a thought that says, Amen. At 4. A call from the postal inspector. A calm baritone that respects forms. We've logged the attempted forward and your canary, he says. If anything migrates, call us first, not your cousin. Paper beats panic. I assure him my cousins are lovely and underemployed in federal matters. 5:30 arrives with the clatter of ordinary grace. Caleb and Noah come with books and a grin. Mara follows, ponytail honest. Hands empty, a good sign for a recovering overplanner. We stitch. Noah chooses 2 fabrics that argue in interesting ways. The seam ripper mediates without bias. Joke high, the bobbin tries to unionize. We promise better working conditions, less jerk. More patience, and it returns to the line. At the 40-minute bell, we walk to the bench. Noah reads the plaque without my finger. He taps twice. Ritual is becoming furniture. Back inside, we eat soup with the sound of spoons behaving. Mara clears her throat. No papers, just words. I called Dr. S.'s office, she says. I told them scheduling through me was wrong. No hedge, no flourish. The pantry paper does its small nod. And I talked to the orthodontist. She adds, cheeks pink. They'll spread the payments, no panic purchases. She looks surprised at her own verbs. I hand her water like a witness. After they leave, the house exhales its wooden approval. I slide today's originals into the lockbox. File 2 copies where the future will remember them. And tape a smaller version of the SDM to the inside of the pantry door with the helpers' names large enough for visitors to see. Ray drops by with his municipal stride and approves the slide latch like he's issuing a tiny occupancy permit. Bench still earning its keep, he asks. Better than some council meetings, I say. We toast the Department of Small Things with thermoses. Just before dusk, Morales texts Fern office retraining scheduled. Doc cautioned. Ex parte note in file. Keep calm. If mail moves, call me. Her messages are a certain kind of lullaby, no melody. All competence. I check the canary letter again. Still loyal to its post, and give it a private salute. Night gathers. Unhurried. I pack tomorrow's tote with a copy of the SDM, the no third-party scheduling page, and 3 bird stamps because wings continue to be the theme. On the pantry door, under kettle rule and bench clause. I add 1 more line in my careful hand if a system learns out loud. Let it. Short, strong, executable. Joke 3 shuffles through in slippers. I tell the printer it's been promoted from witness to volunteer docent. It hums like a tour is forming. Here on your left, we have the audit log that learned manners. Before bed, I write my 3 lines, the receipts my ribs expect. Institutional accountability looks like logs corrected and policies rewritten while you're in the room. Manila came from rope. Good paper keeps you from washing away. The best locks are rituals, same hour, same bench, same blue pen. I turn off the light. The fan writes its cursive. The watch keeps time without swagger. The deadbolt naps with nothing to prove. The canary letter keeps its quiet watch. The bench under the elm prepares tomorrow's shade, and I sleep the way a signed original sleeps flat, legible, and ready for daylight. The week settles into its new gate keys that turn without clearing their throat. Mail that lands where the post meant it to. A pantry door that reads like a municipal code written in kindness. Thursday becomes a noun Noah. 6 o'clock is a verb stitch. Friday night maintenance installs a meek little doorstop that does the emotional labor of a bouncer. It keeps the kitchen conversation from drifting into the hall. The canary letter keeps napping in the box. Wrong middle initial, still gloriously wrong. As if bureaucracy itself were practicing mindfulness. Academic phrase of the day. Procedural memory. The public argument that once a routine is rehearsed, your body can carry out care without asking your anxious brain for permission. We've trained our small republic bench first, kettle next, blue pen always, copies before feelings, dessert after sentences. I find myself calmer, not because people changed, but because the room did. On Saturday, the library hosts dignity and paper, which is just me. 3 librarians who stamp like church, a retired teller named Phyllis, and 12 neighbors who look like they've been keeping other people's secrets for years. I bring lemon bars and a list. We talk about watchwords for banks, supported decision-making in plain English, and how to request an audit log without sounding like a movie. Phyllis demonstrates the art of saying no with a pen in your hand and your jaw relaxed. We practice the sentence Mr. Adler wrote the way choirs practice a psalm. People take home index cards because cardboard courage travels. Elder wisdom reflection. If you want a boundary to keep standing, turn it into etiquette. Forks point inward. Coats go on the bed. Nobody signs anything after cake. Manners remember what willpower forgets. Sunday becomes 2 rituals stitched together at 2. Mara and Noah arrive for bench/library at 3. We go home for soup with verbs. She sits at the far end and pours water without editing anyone's feelings. When money peeks in wearing its complicated face orthodontist. Roof, I hand her the SDM page where she's listed as helper for house maintenance. And we translate estimates into groceries. This roofer thinks in truffles. This one speaks bean soup. Joke one peeks around the lid, I tell the pot it's now our household calculator. It replies with a dignified simmer. By midweek, a postcard arrives from the medical board courteous. Concrete confirming the clinic retraining, the chart header that now shouts on behalf of my consent. And the Fern's newly learned humility. Detective Morales checks in with a sentence that lands like a neat stack on a metal desk, no further mail tampering. Your canary sings in place. We'll keep the flag. The printer, now a volunteer docent, hums once as if to say the exhibit is still open. I buy myself a birthday present 2 months early because I am through with calendars as gatekeepers, a picnic blanket with a rubberized back that refuses to be faced by damp grass. The first warm Saturday. We inaugurated Under the Elm. Ray arrives with a spiral-bound booklet from the Parks Department titled Ambient Belonging, a Field Guide, and the grin of a man who got to name things at work. Trash lids are the unsung poets of civic peace, he announces. We applaud with thermoses. Joke high, I ask if lids should get plaques. He says only if they promise not to brag. Quick, quirky sidebar. Those little plastic bread tags have color codes: white, green, yellow, red, and blue, so stalkers know which weekday a loaf was baked. In some regions, Monday blue, Tuesday green, Thursday red, Friday white, Saturday yellow. Not quite universal, but close enough to feel like the universe slipped us a mnemonic. I decide to adopt the code for Mood's Blue Days, call for benches. Green for paperwork, red for soup, white for naps, yellow for lemon bars. June and I walk our good copy laps after we notarize the SDM at the credit union. She tucks her arm in mine and says, "We're becoming ladies who lunch on due process." I tell her due process pairs well with citrus. We stop at the bulletin board to read the flyer's Lost Cat with one raspberry ear, Quilting Club recruiting beginners, a class on wills taught by a woman who looks like she could fold a fitted sheet into a contract. I feel my chest do that small. Private clapping again, the one that means a system remembered its manners while we were in the room. Mara asks if she can add a verb to Thursday's Learn to Hem. I say yes, because redemption is a seam ripped gently and sewn again. She brings pants that tried to be ambitious and a humility I haven't met since she was 8 and discovered permanent markers aren't. We stitch and talk money with the light on orthodontist spread over 12 months. Roofer chosen for honesty, not swagger, she says. Quietly. I told Colton he can keep hating SDM if he wants, but my verbs live here now. I do not gloat. I hand her the magnet for the bench cloths and let the pantry door do the rest. Noah's quilt grows square by square, red beside green. Stubborn yellow next to brave blue, and the day we join 2 rows. He lifts his arms like a tiny foreman supervising a crane. It's a blanket for memories, he says, solemn. We take it to the bench for inspection. The plaque watches like a small inspector general. The wind approves without a speech. The postal clerk slips me a note with a stamp. Your flag stopped 3 forwards this month for other folks. 2. Tell your class. I do. The retired teller chants it back like a blessing paper beats panic. Logs beat rumors. Noon beats whispers. We all add it to our index cards. Mr. Adler calls with language that has learned to be a neighbor. I've drafted a 1-page polite ferocity for your pantry, what help looks like here. It's plain as biscuits, call first, bench first, soup often, no papers after dessert, SDM honored, I tape it at eye level. The house nods wood nose when it's being governed kindly. On the first evening, the fireflies show up. Caleb lingers after Noah and Mara leave. He sets a handful of lids on the counter, mayonnaise, pasta sauce, a jar that once held pickles. Lint trap is handled, he says. A month ago, that sentence would have been a joke. Today, it's a credential. He clears his throat. Thank you for not turning everything into a trial. I'm learning to choose noon, even when there's no detective. We stand in the doorway and watch the backyard practice Morse code. I think of Walter's old postcards and the air I bought, and how I kept the view and brought it home. When my birthday finally arrives, we don't do surprise. We do ritual Thursday square, even Sunday bench, lemon bars with powdered sugar like quiet confetti. June makes a toast with iced tea, the only beverage that never lies. To blue ink and public benches, she says. To locks with nothing to prove, Ray adds. Noah presents the finished quilt, edges imperfect on purpose, the kind of honesty that keeps, Mara says, simply. I'm sorry. Again. Not as theater, but as maintenance, I reply. Thank you. The way you reply to a well-oiled hinge. We pass the guest book, the only binding instrument in the house, and everyone signs under a new line I added that morning. Close is a verb. People write their names beside small promises. Bring soup. Return library books. Hold benches. Keep receipts. Stay boring when bored saves the day. Joke Pa pats the kettle. I tell it it's on call. It rumbles like a satisfied bailiff. Before bed, I check the canary letter one last time. It's still there. Unforwarded. Singing its song of nothing happened. The printer sleeps. The deadbolt rests. The pantry paper stands its shift. I write my 3 lines. The last receipts for this particular storm. Procedural memory turns dignity into muscle bench. Kettle, pen, copy, cake, Etiquette is just ethics in soft shoes. Use it. Close, conjugated daily, outlives every folder full of fonts.
I turn out the light. The fan writes its cursive. The watch keeps time without swagger. On the bench, the plaque gleams for whoever needs 10 minutes of public goodness. Inside, a grandmother with her pen and her verbs sleeps like paper that has finally been filed in the right tab, and tomorrow, at 6, a boy will pin a square straighter than last week. We began with a simple mistake a wallet left behind. A turn of the car, an open window, and the soft click of strangers rearranging a life that wasn't theirs to tidy. And from that quiet tremor, the days lengthened into lanes, carefully marked, gently enforced, almost musical in their steadiness. Paper woke up and behaved blue ink where decisions live. Copies where panic once camped. Small manila jackets that kept the weather off. The house learned its posture. The bench learned its purpose. The kettle learned when to sing and when to wait. And a woman who had been treated like a lever chose instead to be a hinge. Slow, smooth, reliable. Opening only when it was time. There were apologies with verbs. And rules that asked for nothing flashy bench first. Soup often. No papers after dessert, and there were hands that stitched corners until cloth remembered how to meet itself. And a boy who read a plaque without help. And a daughter who sat at the far end and poured water without editing anyone's heart. Offices corrected themselves in daylight. Printers, once nervous, became witnesses. Locks stopped clearing their throats. And in the soft space between errands, a small republic of manners took root. Bird stamps for wings, lemon bars for courage, a guest book that collected promises instead of plots. The storms did not vanish. They learned their lanes, and dignity turned into muscle memory keys. Bench, pen, copy, cake rehearsed until calm arrived on time. So if you feel your ordinary life trembling, remember that rituals are shelter, that daylight is a kind of medicine, that closeness is something you do, not something you plead for, and that every house can choose its grammar and teach its rooms to speak it softly, night after night, until even the walls exhale.